10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Derp, derp, McDurkin.
Nerf, burp, boggy, boggy.
Welcome to Your Brain on God. Thanks for joining us for our 14th episode of YBOG, where we will be talking about focus, about letting go of all of the noise, of all of the background stuff to focus on the one thing, or maybe one or two things, that really matter, that align with our values, and how when we focus in on things, it actually expands our lives rather than limits our lives. So we're really excited that you joined us on this episode. Yeah, enjoy.
That's good.
You guys are awesome. Hey there, Delilah. What's it like in New York City? You're 1,000 miles away right now.
How'd you know I was going to say that too? How did I know you were going to say that?
Because we are so in sync.
Ready, Aaron?
What?
The word is table.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Brown. We have to guess the right word. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Wait, what was it? Brown and table? All right.
No, brown and food.
Brown and food. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Potato.
Beans. Oh, dude, that was close. Beans and potatoes. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Mashed.
Dang it, bro. All right, ready?
Mashed steak.
3, 2, 1.
Shredded beef.
Shredded beef, dude. Shredded beef.
Mashed steak.
You think I would get shredded beef?
Why would you go to butter?
Because butter is on mashed potatoes.
Yeah, but we're talking about mashed steak.
Anyway, guys, welcome to YBOG, Your Brain on God, episode 14.
Episode 14.
Episode 14. And if you've made it to this episode with us, I just want to say... you were deserving of those 4 claps because there is something special about you. And I don't know if it's a good thing.
But it's a thing.
But it's definitely a thing.
And we will embrace that.
And we will. We really will. And so we're glad that you're on episode 14.
Episode 14.
And we got out of our Fear series. If you were with us for the entire Fear series, if you haven't listened to it yet, go back and watch it. Okay? Because I think it was like episode 10. No, it was episode 9 through
there was 5
13.
of them.
Yeah, but we did a half one in there.
Yeah,
anyway, it doesn't matter. Go back and listen to the Fear series. But I mean, if you're on this one, obviously keep listening to us because this one's going to be good too, I think. Because today we are talking about focus.
Focus.
Mm-hmm. Talking about focus, which always reminds me of the Grinch. Yeah. When
in what way?
the Grinch is where the Grinch is talking to Max and he's like, focus. Okay. Yeah, I said 5/7, not what is it? 5/8, not 3/4, or whatever.
Yeah, he's cutting the ribbons or whatever.
Yeah, no, when he's making the machine to go steal Christmas.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, welcome.
He hands him the wrench. Or whatever.
Yeah, he hands him the wrench. Yeah, he goes and gets him the wrench. Yeah, we're talking about focus today because we just believe that whatever you focus on gets bigger, and I think we've said that in an episode before. Like where our focus is where we're gonna go. I remember when I was in motorcycle training, and they said this phrase. They kept saying this over and over again. They said wherever your eyes are looking, that's where the bike will go. Mm-hmm. So I would go around and we would do circles, or we were doing like our little laps around when we were learning how to ride the motorcycles, and they would constantly be telling to keep my eyes up, eyes up. Like there, and it felt like, how much do I have to keep my eyes up? Because I felt like I was already doing it, but they were like, no, your eyes need to be up. You can't be looking at the bike. You can't be looking at the ground, because if you're looking at the ground, you're going to end up on the ground. And if you're looking where you want to go, you're going to end up where you want to go. So it was all about this focus thing, and I think that is really important for our lives to to wherever we're focused on, that's where we'll find a way. So we want to talk about focus a little bit today.
Yeah. That's I even remember learning that as well when I was just learning to drive. My driving instructor, just talking about how often people veer off the road because they're looking at something to the side,
right?
And it's so easy for that to happen. And whenever I was in I used to do Krav Maga. Yeah, just type of like martial arts. I did it for 9 months. Not very long.
Like that's the
it's
most
kind of expensive, so I couldn't afford it.
That's like the most damaging type of martial art, isn't it?
It's
you just go straight for like the jugular and stuff like that.
It is. It's like, I think it means like contact combat or something. It's like Israeli street fighting, basically.
That's dope.
So I can go to Israel and just know how to throw down, you know?
Right. Only in Israel, though.
Only in Israel, yeah. I don't know how else to use it.
Isn't it like about like poking out eyes? It's about going for all like the
maximum impact, minimum effort.
Which is how I live my life.
That's how I live my life too. But when I was learning Krav Maga, there was this phrase that my sensei would say, and whenever he was teaching us how to do like a basket, basically like holding someone's head, but he would talk about where the head goes, the body follows. Right, wherever your head is going, the rest of the body's going to go there. So it's a lot of self-defense in Krav Maga, and so a lot of things would be like pushing underneath someone's nose, you know, so their head goes back. If their head is going to go back, their body's going to go back, right? Or if you have a hold of their head and their head's going to go down, their body's going to go down, like.
Right.
But I remember taking that concept and realizing how much that applied to life. You know, where our head is at, we're going to be going in that direction.
Whoa.
Regardless if we want to go that direction.
Right.
If our head is in that space, that's the direction we're going.
Right.
So much so that I remember relating this to feeling homesick. Whoa. When I was in college. So I was in Australia, and I left knowing I was going to be gone for at least 3 years, and I probably wasn't going to be able to visit home. And while I was there, I remember having this moment of feeling so homesick to the point where like I had pain, like in my stomach. It hurt.
Physical pain because you were so homesick.
Physical pain. I was thinking about home and my family, and I remember I was laying on the carpet. We had no furniture in our house. Like,
oh, you were so sad.
All of us like new students all living together in a house. And we had like no furniture, basically. We had no kitchen table.
It's like a guy's pad.
Yeah, and it was all fresh. We had nothing there, right? The students that were living there before us, they took all their good furniture when they moved to a different place.
That makes me depressed, just you talking about this.
And we're laying on the floor. Sorry, not we. I was laying on the floor, middle of the night, just thinking about my family, on the carpet, on my back, looking at the ceiling. And I remember all of this like emotion welling up in me, a tear rolling down the side of my cheek. Bro. It couldn't even roll down the side of my cheek because I wasn't sitting up. It was rolling down the side of my temples, you know, towards my ears, collecting in the pools of my ears. And I was feeling this physical pain inside my stomach.
Bro, I can't
Aaron, why are you laughing at me right now?
Because you were being so serious. Okay. Keep going. Sorry. You're talking about your tears filling up your ear pools?
My ears.
All right, keep going.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyways, I was focusing so much on that I wanted to be home, right? To see my family, but I couldn't. Like I physically couldn't.
Right.
And later on, I contemplated this a little further. Started thinking about how our mental energy, where we spend our mental energy and our focus, we naturally want to get some sort of return from that investment of energy, right? So if I'm spending my time thinking about my family, I want some kind of return from that. Naturally, everything's in me wanting to go see my family, talk to my family, hear my family,
right?
You know, spend time with my family. And when I couldn't do that, there was like a deficit. Like I felt like there was this investment I was making that I wasn't getting anything back,
right?
You know, and the same thing happens with like if I'm thinking about video games all the time. What's happening? Without me like deciding, I'm naturally going to start making things happen that's going to get me to playing video games. It's like that's all I'm thinking about, right? Even if I'm not thinking, oh, I'm going to play a video game later on. If I just keep thinking about the video games, eventually my mind works its way to make that happen. If I'm thinking about girls all the time, my mind makes it a way to find some kind of girl to talk to or try to connect with or have some kind of emotional intimacy. You know, if I'm thinking about something all the time, my body, my brain is working to make that thing come to reality.
And so that's why homesickness was so hard? Because there was no return on investment.
Thinking about home, wanting to go home, and my body and my mind was wanting to get that return, but I couldn't.
Right.
It's
like hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Yeah. Hope deferred makes the heart sick.
You know, it's like you have this visualization, or maybe it's just like I don't want to say fantasy, you know what I mean? But like, of like, oh, I want to see that person so bad, or I want to, you know what I mean? Your heart longs. It could be like a good thing.
It could be
in a way, but we even focus on like, you know, like the glory days, I would say that too. You know what I mean? Like the times that
are no longer,
right?
And we long for those, and we can't get them, and we have that feeling of
right. And then we start to get sick to our stomachs because there is no return on the investment of our energy that we're putting into think about those people, the emotional weight that we're putting into, you know, to being with those people, you know?
Yeah, and we can't get that. And so when I was in Australia, I realized, okay, well, I want to start focusing on what I can actually do right now. So I started focusing on relationships that I was around, started focusing on the community that I was in, focusing on work and the things that I could actually get a return on investment, you know, like where I can spend my energy and my time because that's where I was.
Right.
Help me be present. It was actually a really big shift to help me like establish myself while I was there and actually build good experiences, good community, even knowing I wasn't going to be there forever.
Right.
I decided this is where I'm going to invest my time and my energy.
Right.
But we could focus on money, find ways to make money, and we'll find ways to make money, right? If we want to make a lot of money, we can find ways to make money, whether it's through stealing or if it's through working really hard.
Right.
If we keep focusing on I want to make a lot of money, generally we'll find a way to make it happen.
Right.
If we're focusing on Jesus,
I'm just after the bag.
If we're just after the bag,
we're going to get that bag.
We're going to get the bag.
We're going to get the bag.
Yeah. You know, and whenever we focus on something, we keep moving towards it. Where your head goes, your body follows.
Right. That's such a good. Thank you, Krav Maga.
Thank you, Krav Maga.
Thank you, Israeli martial arts. That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, you're going to follow what you're always focusing on, and that can also be really dangerous too, right? Because if you know, focus usually has to do with your values, you know what I mean? But focus can also do, you know, we just got out of our fear series, but focus can have to do with your fears as well. Right? So it's like you're fixing your eyes on your fear and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I can't go there. I can't listen to that. Oh my gosh, I can't be around that person. You know what I mean? Or I don't know if I can make it there. Or I'm never going to be this. Or I'm never, you know what I mean? And then we can get so consumed with our fears or our failures, our mistakes, get focused on sin, get focused on a myriad of negative things, right? And then your body is naturally going to live those things out, right?
Yeah.
Because your brain becomes like locked in on certain things, you know, and then it's like, that's all you can think about. You know what I mean? So the natural, what's being sent throughout your body is going to respond to what you're focusing on. You know what I mean? Whether or not that's good hormones going through you or bad, you know, hormones going on that are stressing you out, that are making you feel sad. Whatever you're fixed on is going to make your body go there, and also is going to make it healthy or not in a way. Right.
Whether it's healthy or not.
Right.
Healthy.
I love what Jesus says about your focusing. He says, I think it's in Matthew 7 or something like that. Matthew 7, Matthew 5 through 7. So somewhere in the Bible. He says, if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be filled with light. And that word for healthy in Greek means single. I think we talked about this earlier. It means like without fold, right? Like
without folds.
Unfolded,
has no folds.
Simple, single, one focused, fixed, right? Like a fixed point. And so what Jesus is saying in this thing is, and it equates with healthiness, that if your eye is single, if it's simple, if it's not layered and you're seeing all these different things, but you're focused on one thing, then your entire body will be filled with light. So that's a huge thing on focus, right?
Right.
on he's literally saying what you see and what you're determined to fix your eyes on is what you're going to get. And I love what you say all the time, Daryl, is you get what you're looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're always focused on fear, you're going to get fear. Right. You know, if you're always focused on what's going to go wrong, you're going to experience what's going to go wrong.
You notice everything that's going wrong.
Right. If you're always focused on how you're not with your family, you're going to feel homesick. You know what I mean? You're not going to get that. You're not going to get the return. But if you're fixed and you switch your focus to what you have in this moment, right? I think that's a huge difference. I think the Bible has a lot of different stories of, and we do it all the time, is where we are focused on things that we can't control. We're focused on things that we don't have or are not yet, right? Which leads us back to the time and presence episode. But we're focused on, there's just so many different things to focus on. The question is, if there is a single focus that Jesus is talking about, what do I focus on?
Right. What is that focus?
What is the focus? What is Jesus talking about? If your eye is single on what? Because there's a million different things that I could focus on and that I could go for, but I don't know what to focus on. You know what I mean? So what are those things to focus on? You know, because I want my body to be filled with light.
Filled with light. Yeah. Jesus also talked about, how you can't serve two gods.
Right.
And there's one thing you need to focus on. Because you can't. You're going to be split when you try to do two different things.
Right. You can't serve God and money.
You can't serve God and money. Yeah.
Right. Or God and insert anything.
Anything else.
Anything else there. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he says in that passage specifically what that one thing is to focus on.
Right.
I think that the Pharisees complicated things often.
Right.
Having folding these things a bunch of times, making it many layered and complicated. And Jesus often brought it back to simplicity.
Right.
And one of the things that comes to mind is when he said that when they asked, what's the most important?
Right.
What's the most important law? What's the most important commandment to follow? And he said, all of the laws and prophets are summed up in this. This is the greatest commandment.
He's basically saying, this is everything.
This is everything. He boiled it down to one focus, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
Right.
And then he also tagged the second one in, so I guess
I guess it's two, but
he said it's like it. It's like this, it's almost the same thing. It's similar. It's like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Right. Because if you're loving God, you can't love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and then go and
hate your
dishonor
neighbor.
And hate your neighbor.
Right. No.
Right. Those things are tied together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at the same time, you can't really love your neighbor, you know what I mean, without loving God. You know what I mean? I think I already said that.
Right. If we're loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, we're in a much probably better position to be able to love somebody else.
To be able to love somebody.
Because of what happens when we're loving God with everything that we are, we kind of we stop caring about all of our selfishness as much.
Right.
And that's how I can love somebody else, is when I'm not selfish anymore.
Right. When you're whole.
When
you're complete. Right. And that's what stepping into the love of God is, that fullness of his love. And so Jesus does. He simplifies it to this one thing of loving him with everything, Yeah. And I think he does this multiple times, and he kind of shows this relationship dynamic going through of what is the most important thing. You know what I mean? There's another story of Martha and Mary, and they're two sisters, and he comes over to their house, and Martha is the hospitality guru. You know what I mean? She's going around and she's cooking everything, and she's getting everything ready because Jesus is in her house, and she's getting everything right. She's tidying up, and she's anxious about many things, and Mary's just sitting at Jesus's feet, just listening to what he has to say. You know what I mean? She's fixed. She's not focused on making dinner. She's not focused on cleaning up the house. She's not focused on getting ready or anything like that. She's just focused on listening to the voice of Jesus, listening to his teachings, being in his presence. And then Martha gets mad at Mary and is like, Jesus, aren't you going to correct Mary? Right? Because it's, because I'm doing all this work, right? I'm focused on all these things. I'm getting everything ready. I'm preparing dinner. I'm cleaning up the house. Tell her to come help me, right? And then Jesus, I love what he says. He says, and Martha, you are anxious about many things, but Mary has chosen the one thing that is necessary. Yeah. And it will not be taken from her.
The one thing. Martha was focusing on the many things.
The many things.
Anxious about the many things.
Right.
Martha was focused on the one thing.
Mary was focused on
Mary was focused on the one thing.
Mary was focused on it. And I think a lot of times we can live our lives like the Martha, where we're focused on so many things that we're anxious about it all, or we think that they're important. And I think this is something that we talked about before we started recording, but in order to focus on one thing, it means that you have to let go of the many things.
Yeah. You need to let the rest of the things go out of focus.
Right.
And we talked about on a camera, when you have a camera with the best pictures, the ones that look the best are the ones that blur everything else out except for the thing that you want to see.
Yeah, that's
why
so good.
Portrait mode on your camera it makes everything else blurry,
Right.
except the thing that's in focus. It adds like extra blur so the thing in focus can stand out and look even better, right? There's even more details that you can see. And in our life, that's what we need to do in order to really focus in on something, to make it stand out and see all of the value and all the details that are there, and tend to those details. Focus in by blurring out everything else.
Right.
What really matters, because you can have a picture that takes in a lot of information, right? If you're like standing in a field with a bunch of trees behind you, and then there's like some rocks closer to the camera, you can have a picture that actually will capture all of those things.
Right.
But then it's hard to know what the focus is.
Right.
Right. It might be less easier to know where the focus is. You're going to be taking in a lot more information. Whenever you have a camera with a shallow depth of focus, it's going to blur everything else out.
Right.
What do you really want to be in the picture?
And then your eyes are immediately drawn to that thing that's in focus.
Yes,
that's
and
clear.
you're drawn exactly because there's nothing else to even look at anymore.
Right.
Because everything is blurred out. And so in our lives, it's like, well, what are those things that I need to blur out?
Right. Yeah.
What are the things that I'm giving attention to that I don't need to be giving attention to?
Right.
What are these thoughts that keep coming to my mind that don't matter as much because I really want to spend time thinking about this thing,
right,
or thinking about these people.
Right.
And having clarity on that allows us to focus our energy to actually making those things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or being with those people, or thinking that way, or growing in that way. There was a story I just read up on a little bit that it was Bill Gates and, do you remember the person?
Warren Buffett.
And Warren Buffett. They were at a dinner with a bunch of people, and someone asked just the group, what's the thing that you contribute to your success the most?
Yeah.
And everyone wrote down their answer on the paper, and both of them wrote down focus.
Focus.
Their ability to focus is actually what they attributed their success to the most, because they were able to say no to a whole lot of other things in order to focus in on what they thought mattered the most.
Right.
And we have to do that in our lives, and when we do that, at least whenever I've done that in my own life, I know that I feel a lot more full in who I am.
Right.
Because I feel like I'm not wasting energy doing things that I kind of care about, but it's not really the thing that makes me come alive.
Right.
When I can practice saying no to the side things and just focus in on the things that I think matter the most,
right,
I feel the most alive, even if I'm doing less.
Right.
I could be achieving less, but it feels like I'm achieving more because I'm able to put more into the thing that matters the most.
Right. Yeah.
We were talking about magnifying glasses.
Yes.
And when we were young, I mean, Aaron was telling me earlier, and I was like, oh yeah, totally, me too.
Yeah, I had my dad. I remember the day so specifically too. He was like living in this apartment complex, and I asked him, I was like, Dad, can you go get me a magnifying glass so that I can burn ants? And my dad is dope, so he did. And so we went to the store, we bought a magnifying glass, and I spent the entire Sunday just outside in the sun, just magnifying, and just trying to burn ants through the sun, just creating little pockets. I was like burning through leaves and like burning ants. It was so much fun.
Yeah,
I loved it. Which is some sick need to kill inside of human beings, which remains to this day. I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh, I've been doing it with paper, with leaves. I totally remember doing that all the time, and it was so fun to be able to take. It's like you're harnessing the power of the sun,
right? And
you're controlling it with this little piece of glass that somehow is taking all the energy and bringing it to one focus.
One focus, yeah.
Where it is intense and it's hot enough to burn things.
Right. It becomes powerful, you know what I mean? It doesn't just become like you're sitting in the sunshine. It actually has like a force that can actually burn through stuff because it's able to centralize or focus.
Yes. Yeah, and when we take that energy and learn to focus it in on something, it's way more potent.
Right.
There was I took a class when I was younger about, I think I might have mentioned this before, but I meant to sign up for this class called Survival Skills, and
You what? For
yeah,
real?
because I was homeschooled. I had like a list of classes I got to pick from.
I feel like I learned so much about you on this podcast. I thought I knew you, Daryl.
I haven't told you this before.
Survival skills?
Yeah, I so there was a list that I got to check off like electives when I was in high school. And I wanted to take survival skills. Like, that sounds sick. I mean, get like a little kit, learn how to like go out in the backyard and the forest.
The backyard?
Or the forest. Yeah. Either one.
Either my backyard.
If I was stranded in my backyard or stranded in a forest or on an island, I just want to know how to survive.
How big was your backyard?
It was not very big. But I remember thinking, oh, that's going to be so much fun. I'm going to love this.
Right.
And I got my coursework back in the mail, and I had the course for self-development. Because I accidentally checked off self-development, which is right above survival skills, apparently. And so I had to take this course called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or Highly Effective Teens.
Stephen Covey.
Yep.
Or whatever.
Yep, Stephen Covey. And I had a workshop I went to, and in this workshop, we did this whole prioritizing exercise where we took all these tasks, and you had to make your 4 different quadrants, right? One of them... it was all based on importance and urgency, right? So what's the most important thing? What's highly important and highly urgent, right? You have that in one corner. Those are the things that you're going to get done. Then you have the things that are highly important and not urgent, right? So you do want to make sure those get done, but maybe they're not in the urgent part yet. Then you have urgent but not important. And this is a key place to be able to draw a line between how you're going to spend your time.
Right. Urgent, but not important.
Urgent, but not important. Right? What are the things that are saying, now, it needs to happen now, but actually are not going to attribute or contribute to the overall goal?
Right. That don't actually matter.
What's not actually going to be adding value? What's actually not going to be helping build your life the way you want to build it, but it needs to happen now?
Right.
Those are the things that you have to say no to. And so you have that quadrant that's not important, but it is urgent. And then you have not urgent, not important, which those are just wastes of time even more.
Waste of time, yeah, even more.
But whenever I think we can get easily caught up doing urgent things that are not important.
Totally.
I do that for sure with work. Maybe it would be important one day, but it probably isn't really even.
Right. Yeah.
It's like it's something that needs to happen, but it's not that important to the overall mission.
Right.
But it could be good to do.
Right.
Right. And those things that could be good to do, but are not vital for success or vital for growth or vital for becoming the person that I feel God is calling me to be.
Right.
Those are the things that have the most potential to take me away from that place.
Right.
Because they're demanding attention.
Right.
It's like a notification going off on my phone. Right. Oh, Instagram, check your Instagram.
Right.
Like, oh, you got a new message, check your text.
It's not that important. I think that's the problem with our brains sometimes, is that they take a stimulus or whatever, they take something like that, and I mean that's a part of anxiety, right? You get in that fight or flight, but where it says like everything is important, everything needs to be in focus, right? And then you get in this information overload, and then you end up being less productive than you would have been if you actually took a deep breath, took a step back. Hey, what's actually important?
Right.
What's not important? You know what I mean? What's actually valuable? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to forget about this. You know what I mean? Because there's always those things that are tugging on you, right? That are like kind of pulling you away from your focus, and there's no amount of prayer. Maybe to some extent, there's no amount of prayer or no amount of like just forcing your way in to where there's never going to be something that is vying for your attention. Like that's not going to happen. And so even more, you are going to have, we are going to have temptations or different things that are pulling at us like, hey, look at me, look at me. And they seem important. They seem urgent. And going back to the motorcycle analogy, right? When I was on the motorcycle, it's actually very scary to keep your eyes up, because you have a 600-pound beast underneath you, and it's scary to keep your eyes up and not look down at the road because there might be something in the road. And so what they tell you is all of that stuff needs to be in your peripheral vision. but your peripheral vision is kind of blurry. So,
Right, yeah.
so it's actually scary to kind of like look and scan and keep your eyes up, because I want to be noticing what's happening everywhere below me, right? And that's the same thing with life. The same thing with Martha. Well, getting the kitchen done is important, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
who's
we
gonna
need
do the dishes if I don't do them?
Who's going to
or,
do the
you know?
dishes? Who's going to cook dinner for Jesus if I don't do it?
Right.
Right? And so these things are always vying for our attention. And so figuring out, it's a hard thing to figure out what actually to focus on, right? And so I think that kind of model, that box model is an important way to kind of step into, okay, what is actually important in this very moment? This is right in front of me, and this is actually important. I'm going to become single in this moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think the Greek word is haplos, right? Which means
so.
single. And
Yeah.
then the antonym of it is diplos,
Which means double.
which means double. Right? But to be divided, you know, and there's a lot in scripture, and even just what I've read about, like even monks who are following after God, about living a divided life. You know what I mean? It's
Double-mindedness.
Double-minded. Yeah. James talks about don't live double-minded, because you'll be tossed to and fro like the wind and the waves. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. I remember reading stories about monks who would always do one thing at a time, right?
Yep.
They would go on a walk and they would eat, so they would even like maybe quiet down while they ate, you know what I mean? So that they could just focus on eating, you know what I mean? Like they would do one thing at a time, because really our brains are not good at multitasking. In
Right.
fact, they can't multitask, you know, to some degree. I mean, we can, but we can't have undivided attention to two things.
Right.
You're
No,
naturally going to be divided. You're naturally going to do it not as well as if you are focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think I read this in a book. I was reading a book. I think it was called The One Thing. And the whole thing was about doing one thing at a time, right? How and it talked about these different myths about productivity. Multitasking was one of them. And he mentioned how we can't do multiple things at the same time with all of our attention and all of our effort. Right. And so if we try to multitask, we're inevitably those things are going to suffer in some way, because we're not going to give it full attention.
Right.
It's not going to be as good as it could be. And he gives this example of walking and talking. So we're on the phone and you're walking to somebody. You're just walking. You know, it's possible for us to walk and talk. Totally, right? We can chew our gum. We can walk and talk. But when something serious really happens, what do? We stop and we listen, or we start talking and communicating. Because even that little act of walking, which is so natural to us, is still taking some of our energy.
Right.
But even in the midst of that, with such a little thing as walking that we're doing our whole life, you know, well, you know, except for the first few months or year or whatever.
Right.
But that little thing is
I walked
taken
straight
away.
out of the womb.
Walked right out of there. As soon as it opened up, I just walked right out.
I'm like, I don't need your hands. I'm like,
excuse me, coming through.
Excuse me. Not even a problem. What's up? Okay.
Hey,
Where's
what's
the
up?
milk?
Can somebody cut this, please?
Yeah. What is this? Okay. Do your job.
Oh my
okay. Cut
gosh.
this thing.
But even that little thing of walking,
Right.
we stop doing because we're trying to focus and pay attention to what's being said.
Totally.
And that myth of multitasking, you know,
Right.
where we think, okay, well, I'll just do all these things at the same time. Inevitably, something's going to suffer.
Right. And that's the myth, is that we'll be more productive if we can focus on more things than at once, you know?
Right.
Which is, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not about figuring out how to focus on multiple things at the same time.
No.
But how do we focus on what really matters?
Right. Right. And that's, you know, I relate it back to, you know, when I was it's actually probably for the last 3 years, maybe 2 years, maybe I've developed, you know, a lot deeper of relationships with people. Because in my earlier years, like in friendships, I just wanted to love on everybody. And so I just kind of made touching points with everybody. So I was a part of a lot of groups, but didn't have a lot of solid, deep friendships, or wasn't what. It's not that I didn't have some deeper friendships. Obviously, you know, my best friend Rob from college, like he totally like a solid guy. Still talk to him to this day. You know, so I definitely had deep relationships, but I was less okay with being at a party or a get together, a gathering, and focusing on just having one conversation with one person than I was like, I need to make my rounds with every single person, right? Because to me, it was like, everybody matters. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm going to go talk to everybody. I think it came out of a good heart. But I, at this point in my life, I think I am more okay with just being with one person and sitting and talking to them for the entire party. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Or for the entire get together to actually have a conversation. And in fact, I enjoy it more. And I think that person enjoys it more when you could just keep going deeper. You know what I mean? And some people join the conversation and it's cool or not, you know, but to actually focus on that one person and have them be, I guess goal is a weird word, but my goal for just creating connection with that one person. And so other people come up to you, hey, come over here, do this. Are you going to take this picture? I'm just like, oh, wait, I'm talking right now. You know what I mean? Just so I could focus on that one person. I used to think that it almost even wasn't loving to just focus on one person. Like I have to reach everybody. You know, I have to go everywhere.
Right.
And I've started to realize now, no, it's actually, I think it's more valuable, and it comes back to those values, right? What is important to me, to have a deeper conversation with one person or maybe two or three people than it is to try and make my rounds and have a bunch of shallow conversations that I'll forget later, later on, you know? And so it was that focusing in that actually created even a deeper connection. Like I left the party even more rejuvenated than I would when I made connections with everybody. Right? Yeah. Because it was that focusing in, you know what I mean? And it was actually more productive for my relationships that I would stay in one group, or that I would, you know, sit and I would be present and I would be, you know, there for that one person. I would only talk to a couple people in the night or whatever, you know what I mean? Because everyone's vying for your attention, wants you to come over here, have conversations here, blah, 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 all these different, you know, not that people are just like, it's a distraction waiting to happen, you know what I mean? If something actually was important, I would talk to that other person or something like that. But when you focus in, I think it opens up things, you know? And I think this is a big fear. And this is a fear that I've had. I'm a type 7 on the Enneagram. And so getting locked into anything is, it feels like an assault on my freedom, you know? Right. So it's like, it was always scary to pick anything to do, you know what I mean? Because I just want to keep options open. I want to keep everything open, you know? But I think we are afraid in focusing in that it will limit us rather than expand our reach.
Yeah.
So we're scared to actually lock in, and this is why people are so afraid to like pick a career or pick something that they love to do or like get really good at one thing, you know? Because if I actually lock in, if I want to get really good at guitar, that means I can't be really good at drums. You know? And there are some people obviously that are really good at both. But what I'm saying is like if I want to be an expert in something, that means I'm not going to be an expert.
Right, because you need to say no to other things.
Because I need to say no to other things. And this is the reason that I'm a jack of all trades but a master of none, you know? Because it's like I played all the instruments. I wanted to get them all, you know what I mean? Right. But I'm not an expert in anyone because I didn't focus in, right? Yeah. And so we feel like if I focus up that it'll be limiting rather than expanding. But I had this vision a while ago of Jesus says, narrow is the way that leads to salvation. Wide is the path that leads to destruction, right? And I had this vision from Jesus where I went through this narrow way, and it was narrow, we just squeezed right through it, you know? But then when I actually come to Jesus and I experience the narrow way, what happens is it was like a full plain, like an open field, like mountains and everything. Like I could run for miles and miles and miles, right? So it was like narrow is the way, but wide is the territory that narrow way leads to. Right? And I think that is a myth of focusing as well, is that actually when you focus on something, it opens up opportunity, right? It opens up like the ability to develop. It opens up the depth of community. It opens up all of these things, but we're afraid if we don't focus on everything, then we won't have everything. You know? Yeah. When it's actually being single opens up a multiplicity of things, you know?
Yeah, when you focus in on the one thing, I'm trying to think of an example. But if you have it's like a filter, right? When you put a filter on, everything is filtered through that one thing. So everything has that color,
right?
So you start noticing all these different things in a different way. I think you mentioned this actually earlier today or the other day, that when we do focus on Jesus or having the mind of Christ, we see everything through a different perspective.
Right.
Because we're focusing on him.
Right.
And so when we're focusing on him, everything that we see is going to be in accordance to that.
Right.
John Maxwell, he says that he has a mission statement for his life, and it's to love God and add value to people. That's his focus for his entire life. But those two things, loving God and add value to people, that's what he spends his life doing.
Right.
And there's so much opportunity, so much that he's been able to do because he's had a focus.
Right.
Right? He focused in on, I want to live my life to love God and add value to people. And through that narrow focus, he has done so much.
Right. He's written countless books. He's a speaker all over the world.
Totally. He was a pastor for a really long time. He's written countless leadership books.
Yeah.
He speaks to huge companies all the time. He has a podcast now as well. But he's done so much because he was able to focus his life.
Right.
And so focusing on our life doesn't mean we're going to lose things or have things cut off or lose opportunities. Well, it does mean that, actually.
Yeah, it does.
It does mean that we're going to lose certain opportunities. We're going to lose certain things. We're going to have to say no to a lot of things.
Right.
Because when we have a focus, that is the one thing that we become committed to. That is what we are here to do.
Right.
And Tony Robbins says the same thing with, if you want to be successful in business, focus on one thing and add more value than anybody else.
Right.
If you do that, what's the one thing you can do that'll contribute more value to others than anybody else can do?
Right.
Do that one thing.
Right.
How are you adding value?
Right.
And this is how he tells people to build a successful business.
Yeah.
Figure out the one way you can add more value. What's the one thing you can do to add more value than anybody else is adding? What's one thing that you can do?
Yeah.
And when we can focus in on that one thing, it doesn't mean we can't build more relationships, but it might change the way that we build relationships. Right? It's now we might be focusing on, if I'm focusing on Jesus, okay, how can I be like Jesus? Like, how would Jesus build relationships? Right? How would Jesus make these decisions? And it's not, I don't even know if I would say that you are losing the amount. You're not losing the amount of things that you're getting. You're just getting different things that all have to do with the one thing.
Right.
It's not as much of a loss as it is a change.
Right.
Right? You're changing what you're going to be investing in. You're changing what you're going to be expecting from life. You're changing the way that you're going to be living your life because you're focused in on one thing.
Right.
Which does require you to say no.
You just say no. And that's like a huge thing, is that you have to empower your no. That sounds like a self-help title or something.
Grow your no so you can bless your yes.
Oh,
Margaret Stunt used to say that to me all the time in college.
Grow your no. Yeah, you have to say no to things, you know? Yeah, you have to say no to things. You know what I mean? Some things are just less important. Some things are not your calling. Some things are not in line with your mission for your life. And that sometimes comes at a cost, or maybe even an experience of a cost. You know what I mean? And then you realize, oh, wait, that wasn't actually too much of a cost. This ended up happening that totally filled that place. You know what I mean? You say no to certain opportunities. You say no to doing things so that you can direct your attention on things that matter, you know? And I deal with a lot of the younger generation. I mean, I'm still young. I'm only 26, but with youth, and I would say younger, maybe, I don't know if it's Gen Z or like just younger millennials, maybe right on the cusp between Gen Z and millennial, is this experience of having so many options. And this is something just typical to high school as well, high school and college, having so many options that you get paralyzed by the amount of options that you have, right? And they don't know what to do. So the easiest thing to do for them, it seems, is to cut off all options, just go work at a regular, food place or something like that, and then try and be like start a business or something like that, which I commend them for going and starting a business, but most of the time they're still focused on so many things.
Right.
They're not willing to commit to one thing, that it actually stifles their growth, and then they end up spending most of their early 20s You know what I mean? Not really falling into their calling or their purpose, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or falling into like growing in something great, you know? When I think about focus of someone who totally goes against this grain, it's one of our old electric guitar players for church named Journey. This kid would spend at least 4 hours a day playing electric guitar in his room when no one else is watching. Like, how much do you have to say no to play 4 hours a day of electric guitar?
Yeah, it's a lot.
But this kid was insane at electric guitar. Absolutely insane. So good at it. He was excellent at it. And then he just moved to North Carolina to try out for Elevation Church, which is one of the biggest churches in the country, to try out for their worship team. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure he's going to make it, Like, I'm pretty sure like that's in his future to actually step into that space because he did focus in on that one thing and he became excellent. I can't shred like that guy because I wouldn't focus on electric guitar. I could do very basic things because I kind of played a little bit, right?
Right.
But he was kind of someone that went against the grain and wasn't afraid to say, I love electric guitar. I'm passionate about electric guitar. So I'm actually going to jump into this thing and play as much of it as I can and get really, really dang good. And he did that. And it's a bummer that we don't have him at our church anymore because he was fire. He was so good.
He is good.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Yeah. So yeah, it's focusing in on that one thing so that more opportunities can be, because if he didn't do that, he wouldn't be thinking that he even have the confidence to go try out for like an amazing, absolutely incredible worship like Elevation Worship,
Yeah.
That's crazy. Open it all up. Yeah.
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 That's good.
That's good stuff.
That's good.
Are we done?
Something practical to help bring focus.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be good to end with a couple practical things.
Yeah.
Something that comes to my mind is one, ask God what that thing is. What's your life about? What's the most important thing? And just sit and what comes to mind and write it down. Something that I mentioned earlier was that John Maxwell, he has a mission statement for his life, which he says is what focuses everything that he does, right? Everything that he does is about loving God and adding value to people. And that's how he spends his life, is figuring out how to do that one thing.
Right.
If you don't have a mission statement for your life, sit down and try to figure that out. What is the one thing that you want your life to do? What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to spend your time? If you can focus all of your energy on one thing, what would that be? Mm-hmm. I've been getting into the practice of journaling, and most of the days I'll be in the morning, I'll write down what my quest is for the day, right? And that's my mission. My mission is to love better than I did yesterday and to build God's kingdom on the earth. And so every morning, except for the days that I miss, I write that down on a piece of paper. And that actually helps bring focus to the way that I spend my day. It brings focus to my energy, to my thought life, to my efforts. It brings focus to what I'm doing because I'm writing it down every day. And I could not write it down every day and just have it somewhere. But actually the act of writing it down causes me to remember it throughout the day. Right. Because then it becomes more ingrained into who I am. Mm-hmm. And if you have a mission statement, it can change. That's okay. It doesn't need to be something that you have to commit to now and now it can never change again. But if you find something, one way to focus your energy, focus your life, focus your efforts, write it down. And if it changes later on, that's okay. I used to have, I've had a couple different mission statements throughout my life, but the more that I've lived and the more that I've grown, the more that I've changed, the more I've tried to clarify what is it that I really want my life to be about. And if every day I can love better than I did the day before, I think I'll be doing a pretty good job. Right. Yeah. If I can do that for 60 years, I'd be happy. Right. I would be satisfied. So figure out what that thing is. Sit and spend some time in reflection, and write it down. Yeah. 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 I would say also just a good reminder is that, your focus for today could be different than your focus on tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, right. It's okay to fully give yourself to something. I mean,
and then not unless it's like marriage, but fully give yourself something and then change your mind. You know what I mean? And, you could fully give yourself to like, I just want to become the best drummer ever, and fully realize and then be in it for a year and be like, and that's not a waste of time. You know what I mean? Right. You devoted yourself to something. You went after something. You realized that it wasn't for you. Focus on something else. Fully dive into it. Fully show up. Something that Daryl's also encouraged me with a lot is that you have to fully show up in life. You have to fully show up to things. And that doesn't mean that those things won't change. And if they do change, it doesn't mean it's a waste of time. Actually go after something. And then if you change your mind and you're like, man, I really want to focus on this instead. You know what I mean? Then go after that instead.
And you would have developed the practice of focusing on something.
Yes. Yeah, at the least.
Yeah.
At the least. You would have developed a skill and you would have, or developed a craft, but at least you would have developed the skill of really giving yourself to something, the commitment of giving to yourself. And that's empowering in itself.
Absolutely.
To fully give yourself to something and to fully go after something and to be okay saying no to other things, which would be the second thing I say is to say, ask yourself, in the morning, what do I get to say no to this morning? Like today, like what do I have to say no to? Like those friends hanging out tonight, it's like, that sounds good, but I really want to focus on this tonight. I really want to write tonight, or I really want to practice tonight, or I really want to, I don't know, gain something from this film score tonight, or something like that. I'm actually going to say no to that so that I can say yes to that. I'm going to say, what is it? I'm going to
grow my nose so I can bless my yes.
Yeah, grow your nose so you can bless your yes. And then no becomes fun sometimes, it does, where it's just like, do you want to do that? And it's like, no, I don't, because it just doesn't align with my values. Like sometimes people ask me to hang out now and I'm just say no. Because I have like a solid group. I have things to do. I have things I'm going after, things that God has put on my heart that I'm ready to go. And so I can't hang out with everybody. Right. You know what I mean? I can't go to that, I can't go to that movie night, or I can't go to that thing because I don't really want to, because I have something else that I'm focused on, so grow that no. So yeah, I would say relax. What you focus on today can change tomorrow, and that's okay. And then, unless you're changing flippantly, right? And that's also something. If you're changing every single day, you don't really know what your values are.
Then just sit with it for a minute.
Yeah, sit with it for a minute. At least, maybe take a week or take a month to really sit and fully give yourself to something before you decide this isn't for me. Because again, with this generation that's coming up, it seems like they can be very flippant sometimes. They're great people, but I can be flippant sometimes. But yeah, so realize that it's not, you're not set in concrete and you're not locked in if you actually focus on something, and then empower your no to create that focus. And the final thing I would say is fix your eyes on Jesus, man. I love what Hebrews chapter 12 verse 1 and 2 says. It says, since we have such a great cloud of witnesses, it's talking about like the heroes of faith. It says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the one who initiates and perfects our faith. For he, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, despising its shame, right? So that we might be the firstborn of many brothers. I think I made up that last part, but I didn't remember the actual verse.
But it sounds good.
But it sounded so good, and that it did. But Jesus had a focus. It was the joy set before him. It was the kingdom set before him. And he was able to endure any kind of suffering because what he saw past the suffering. He had a focus. And then just like Jesus, we get to fix our eyes on him who initiates and perfects faith. That means from the beginning to the end. He's got your life. He's got your faith. He's got your love. He's got like what you're going after, your plans, your purpose. He's got all of those things in his hands, from the beginning, the initiation, to the perfection or the completion of those things. Jesus has got it, and then he becomes that filter by which you see all of life, right? And I want to see through Jesus's eyes. I want to focus on Jesus so that his focus becomes my focus, so that my heart, that Hillsong song my heart breaks for what breaks his heart. Yeah. You know what I mean? My eyes see what his eyes see, the people that he sees, the love that he wants to give. I want to be able to give that. And so seeing through Jesus is really important to me too. So those three things I think are practical.
Yeah. That's good.
That's good stuff. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode.
Today's episode of YBOG. We didn't even say it. Your brain on God. Beautiful. Make sure that you guys follow us. Subscribe on iTunes Podcast, Spotify, Instagram, YBOG, or actually it's Your Brain on God on Instagram. You can get to Your Brain on God on YouTube as well. Watch us in video. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's it.
You guys are awesome. Have the most amazing day, and we will catch you next week for Your Brain on God.
Mm-hmm.
Peace out.